Hello everyone, in today's episode of Project Honda Civic Si, I'll be checking out the all-new Stoptech C43 Big Brake Kit for the 8th generation's Honda Civic Si. So, as you may well know, a big sticking point for this build so far has been the brakes in this car. As I've outlined before, the stock brakes in the Civic Si are completely inadequate for road course use, especially with an experienced driver behind the wheel. I've installed these TSX front brakes, which are much larger than the stock Civic Si brakes, and they've alleviated the rotor destroying issue and the bad brake pad wear I was experiencing. But there's always room for improvement, and especially when a brand like Stoptech reaches out with some of their products, you kind of jump on the opportunity. So Stoptech reached out to me and asked if I was interested in testing out their all-new C43 Big Brake Kit for the 8th generation Honda Civic Si. Now, if you're not familiar with it, C43 is a newer big brake kit for Stoptech. You may know the ST40 and ST60 and the Stoptech Trophy. C43 is a newer kit. They basically mostly use it in the Honda S2000, and they've kind of decided to start expanding this lineup. The principle is it's a medium price big brake kit with a focus on lightweight components. So let's take a look what's in the box. So here is one of the rotors for the C43 kit. Now this is an interesting size. It's a 309 millimeter tall disc, so it's 9 millimeters taller than a stock Civic Si or TSX rotor. But crucially, it's a two-piece construction, so the hat and the rotor disc are two separate pieces. And then the rotor itself is 32 mils wide, which is massive compared to stock Honda rotors. This is one of the C43 calipers. I believe this is a raw anodized finish, if I'm correct. Split two-piece design, pretty conventional center bridge for the pads, like a typical race-style caliper. And you can see big stainless steel 4 pistons in there. Now, when you buy this kit, or when you go to buy this kit going forward, you will have an option on brake pads. I believe they have a street pad, an intermediate pad, and a race pad available for you to choose from. I chose racing brake pads. I'll touch more on that in a second. Box number 2, we have the second rotor, obviously. A rather thick installation guide, which is very helpful. I'm guessing this is the other caliper. Yep, this is the left side caliper. Right there. And last but not least, we have what they call accessories. This is your mounting bracket, your brake lines, stuff like that. So in the interest of full transparency, I want to say this is not a sponsored video, sponsored post, sponsored content. I did have to pay for this kit. However, this is what Stoptech refers to as a verification program. So I have kit number 1. This is technically a pre-production kit, but it looks like exactly what's going to come in the box going forward. But this is, I believe, according to Stoptech, the first production-ready kit of the C43 for the 8th generation Honda Civic. So basically, I am testing the kit. I'm verifying the fit, the finish, and ultimately the efficacy on track for them in exchange for a heavily subsidized price. So no bias. If it's good, it's good. If it's not, it's not, and I will tell you accordingly. So let's do a more in-depth look at the components I just pulled out of the box. So initial impressions, in typical Stoptech form, everything's packaged very well. Everything's in perfect shape on arrival. Fit and finish all looks fabulous, but this is a kit about function. So I want to see how functional it really is. So the first step before I install it on the car is to get some measurements out of the way, because this kit feels very light. So I want to see how light it really is. So a key component of the C43 kit is the claimed lightness. Of course, when you're upgrading to a big 4-piston caliper like this, you're obviously going for the increased thermal capacity and superior braking to the stock calipers. But for the C43 kit in particular, because Stoptech claims are such a light kit, I'm very curious to see how light it actually is. So these calipers, I mean, to the hand, they're extremely light. So I feel like this house scale is gonna be great for the rotors, but these are gonna be too light for this guy. So I have this little small scale here. It's very delicate and calibrated for weights under 12 pounds. So let's see where this guy weighs in. All right, so our scale is zeroed out, and we're gonna put the C43 caliper on there. Is that correct? Yeah. So according to this scale, this Stoptech C43 caliper weighs in at 4 pounds, 3.3 ounces. That is incredible for a large 4-piston caliper. Next up we have the Aero rotors. These are a 2-piece rotor, separate hat and disc. Very light, just picking this up, but obviously this is gonna be a little bit heavier than my very delicate 12-pound and under scale, so I have this larger house scale, and we're gonna see how this guy weighs in. Now keep in mind, this is 309 millimeters by 32 thick, very thick rotor. Let's see what we get. 13 pounds exactly, 13.0 pounds. That's incredible. Now, for the sake of transparency, this mounting bracket is a key part of the weight, so I do want to measure this guy too. Very, very light. So let's put it on this little scale. And that bracket weighs in at 1 pound, 0.3 ounces. So Stoptech actually includes a rather detailed installation guide, complete with pictures and everything, but I'm gonna give you a quick and dirty kind of walkthrough of what I do to swap out the brakes, just so you know there's no kind of funny business and it's pretty easy as a DIY. Going through the instructions list, I figure there's one real step that's gonna catch me, but we'll see when we get there. So first thing for me, I already have the rotor set screws removed. They always strip out and they're a pain, so I just don't run them on my car. But you knock those out of your rotor, either here or here. Phillips head screwdriver, impact driver if you got it. That out of the way, we're gonna wanna remove the brake caliper and the brake line from the strut. So brake line is bolted to the strut with a 12 mil, and the caliper is bolted to the knuckle with two 17s here and here. Oh yeah, put your car on jack stands, blah blah blah, not liable if your car crushes you, etc, etc. Alright, so with the caliper off the spindle, all you gotta do is pull the rotor off. If you have set screws, good luck. Otherwise, just the rotor should pop right off. Worst case, use a little mallet and whack it. And for those of you who are longtime watchers of this channel, you remember that those rotors on there with the TSX calipers were actually Stoptech slotted sport rotors, which have done a great job of holding up to the track abuse I'll put this car through. And that was, in no small part, kind of a little push to kind of help me go forward with working with Stoptech on developing this kit. So depending on your priorities, the next step is either remove the caliper brake line from the hard brake line on the chassis, which uses a 10mm flare nut wrench, or we got to remove the dust shield. Now I'm going to tackle the dust shield first. These rotors are so large in thickness that they will actually hit the dust shield no matter how much bending you do, and so you need to get this dust shield off. As you can see, I've already cut a lot of it away to even fit the TSX calipers, and even still it was a pain in the butt, so this guy has to come off. On a lot of cars, removing the dust shield is no big deal, but on these Civics, Honda, for whatever reason, has made the mounting screws down here behind the hub, so you can't reach them with a screwdriver. So, don't mind the noise, I live next to an airport. According to Stoptech's instruction, they say use some vice grips or pliers, grab these little Phillips head screws and try and unscrew them. Which is definitely going to be easier said than done. There we go. Alright, yeah, no real easy trick to this. Grab some vice grips or pliers and just do your best to not totally destroy this little mounting screw. Very small, very easy to strip or destroy. There are 3 of those little screws around the perimeter of the hub that hold this dust shield on, like that. And now your big problem is that Honda installs this dust shield before they install the hub, so you can't just pull it off, the hub's in the way. So you have to like basically cut a slit in this dust shield and then break it off around the hub, and it's off. I'm going to take the brake line, which is not side-to-side specific, and I'm going to bolt it up to the caliper And that way, when I pull the line off this old caliper, I can just go and quickly bolt on this new caliper and again minimize that loss of brake fluid and the inevitable mess. So the brake lines of Stoptech kit are very, very simple. You have the brake line, which has one side that matches the chassis, another side that matches the caliper. All Stoptech calipers pretty much use a standard banjo bolt style line. So you have this little circle guy with a little hole inside of it that transfers the brake fluid. And you have a banjo bolt right here, same deal with a hole right here to move that brake fluid. And basically going to put one washer on this side, push it through the banjo like that, and then bolt it into the caliper with a washer on that side as well. Now, we're going to leave this kind of loose just so I can move the brake lines around as necessary. There we go. So it looks like that. And again, this is just a precaution to minimize that loss of brake fluid and minimize the mess I have to clean up afterwards. We have to take our 10 mil flare nut wrench and remove the hard brake line up here. But fortunately, Stoptech provides these little caps, if I can get my brake fluid covered hands on them. This little rubber cap, basically it slides over the hard line to slow the loss of the brake fluid there. Pretty slick. You just push the hard line out of the way, and now just to remove the caliper line out of the chassis. I think one of the cool things about this kit is that it's plug and play, so a common upgrade for these cars is obviously the Acura TLS OEM big brake kit, but those require you to actually modify the hubs to fit the mounting bolts for those calipers. Versus this, it's plug and play. Okay, so I ran into a hiccup with Stoptech calipers. I believe since these are kind of a generic caliper, they kind of fit on a lot of different applications. There can be bleeders for the calipers on either side, and in my case, they put the bleeders on upside down for both calipers. So whenever you're looking at a brake caliper, the bleeders should always be facing up, because where air wants to go when it's trapped, air goes up. And in my case, I didn't notice this, but both the bleeders are installed the wrong way on my calipers. There are ports on either side of the calipers. Just make sure yours are oriented the right way before you install, like I just did. I have the caliper and the rotor roughly mocked into place here. Nothing's torqued down yet. These are just very loosely held on. Kind of just looking at the initial fit and finish of everything. Making sure the brake line is the right length, which they appear to be. That they bolt up the hard line, which they seem to do. And the next step is to try and fit the pads. But before I do that, I actually want to measure the stock components. So I have them all right up there. Okay, so first up, I have the stock Civic Si components. Here's a Civic Si brake pad, which is pretty small. And here is the caliper. This is notably heavier than the Stoptech one, so I'm not sure if my small scale will be able to read it if it's too heavy. We're gonna find out. Oh no, it works. A stock Civic Si caliper weighs in at 9 pounds, 9 ounces. So the Stoptech caliper is a notable weight savings. So that is the Civic Si caliper. Let's take a look at the TSX caliper for reference. 9 pounds, 9 ounces. TSX caliper. Here are the slightly larger TSX pads. And for the TSX caliper, which feels a good bit heavier. Ooh, the TSX caliper maxed out this little scale. Wow. So these TSX calipers are heavy. We have to put them on the big scale over here. 12.6 pounds. Look at that. So going to these Stoptech calipers is a notable weight savings. So we have the OEM Civic Si pad right here, the TSX pad right here. You can see the size difference. And now we have the Stoptech race pad. Let's take a look at these guys. So right away, these pads are massive. The overall size is comparable to the TSX pad. Here they are right here. Look at the thickness of these pads. These are way bigger than any OEM style pad. So that means you're getting more value for your money and better heat capabilities. Look at that. So we've seen that the Stoptech calipers represent a much a notable weight savings, as well as having a much thicker brake pads. Let's take a look at the rotors now, because I was really impressed with how light Stoptech rotors were. So here we have Civic Si OEM rotors. These are used, so she should, in theory, be a few tenths lighter than a brand new one. Let's see what we got here. Stock Civic Si rotor, 15.8 pounds, very respectable. TSX rotor, 18.3 pounds. Now obviously it's a trade-off, heavier but better thermal capacity because it has that extra size. And just a reminder, the new Stoptech racing rotor, 12.9 pounds. That's lighter even than the tiny Civic Si rotors. Crazy. Alright, so now we're going to install these new SR33 racing brake pads into the calipers. Looks pretty simple, only a single bolt bridge rather than a dual bolt bridge like some other calipers have. Presumably that's part of the weight savings. But just use your 5mm Allen key right here. So super minimalist design, which is one bolt-on bridge. Now we just slide the brake pads in. Very simple pad shape, makes this all pretty simple. And it looks like good fitment there. The shape of the pad backing plate bottoms out inside the caliper, like that. And you just take your bridge, line it up. Okay, so for all intents and purposes, this BBK is installed in the car. I need to go around and do the final torquing on everything. The instruction manual Stoptech includes has all the torque figures for all the key fasteners you're working with there. But there's one more thing I want to show you, and I'll be right back. Now in the last episode, I showed you how to measure big brake kit clearance for your wheels. Because a big thing you need to keep in mind that in a lot of cases, this big aftermarket big brake kits are much larger than your stock brakes, and some wheels just aren't gonna work. Now, with this kit, Stoptech says it's designed for 17-inch wheels. It's a very popular track setup for this car. However, not every 17-inch wheel is created the same. And to prove that point, these are my daily wheels. Super cheap 17s I just run as every day with normal everyday tires on them. And I suspect they're not gonna fit. Look at that. I can't even put the wheel all the way on the hub because it's hitting the calipers. Fortunately, in my case, I knew this was going to be an issue because I used that template like I used in the last video, and I have a set of wheels that will fit over here for daily use. So I picked up this set of TSW wheels for $100 with tires, and I checked the template, and they clear. Just. Even with these guys with big curved spokes, I mean, they literally have just a few millimeters of clearance. But, crucially, we're on. We're good. Notice the car's starting to get a lot of wheel hop, especially from the right-hand side. I thought it was the tires, so I went to do a front-end tire change, and then sure enough, I have blown a CV.